After we got engaged, the six of us planned one last trip before the wedding. That night, my best friend Chloe suggested we play a game, 24-hour partner swap. The rules were simple. Whoever drew matching cards would have to act like a couple for the entire day. But the person who drew the blank card, they had to be the designated photographer and luggage carrier for everyone else. In the first round, I drew the blank card. My fiancé, Ethan, and Chloe both drew the moon. They held hands as they watched the sunrise. I walked behind them, carrying 3 heavy backpacks. In the second round, I got the blank card again. They drew the rose. Their penalty was to hug each other for a full minute. Everyone cheered and hyped them up. I stood off to the side, timing them with my phone. The third round, the fourth round, 7 rounds in a row. I was always the leftover one. Chloe leaned into Ethan's chest, smiling as she comforted me. "We're just playing a game, Hazel. You're not actually jealous, are you?" Ethan ran a hand through her hair, looking at me. "Don't worry about her. She's always been a sore loser." On the last night, they drew matching wedding cards. The rule was that they had to hold a mock wedding ceremony. Chloe slipped into the simple white wedding dress I had brought for my pre-wedding photo shoot. Ethan slid my engagement ring off my finger and slipped it onto Chloe's ring finger. All her friends crowded around them, chanting, "Quiche, quiche, quiche." The next second, Ethan actually leaned down and kissed her on the lips. While everyone was celebrating, I quietly walked over and opened the custom card deck box. The compartment meant for me was filled entirely with blank cards. But Ethan and Chloe's compartments? They were packed with identical moons, roses, and wedding cards. It turned out my bad luck wasn't luck at all. This entire game had been rigged for the two of them from the very start. I smiled faintly. Then, I pulled out my phone and deleted all the digital wedding invitations I had spent months preparing. Since there was never room for me in a 6-person trip, then for the rest of my life, I didn't need to save a seat for them either. Right when I deleted the invitations, a loud cheer erupted behind me. Ethan ended the kiss and released his grip on Chloe's waist. Chloe's cheeks were flushed, but her hands were still resting on his shoulders. Tyler shouted, still wanting more drama. "One more time." Ethan laughed and flipped him off. "Get lost." But he didn't push Chloe away. It wasn't until Chloe noticed me standing there that she seemed to suddenly remember. She looked down, touching the ring on her finger. "Hazel, the ring is stuck. I can't get it off." She waved her hand at me, her voice dripping with innocence. "Can I just wear it for tonight? Is that okay?" That engagement ring was a custom piece Ethan had given me on my birthday. He told me it was tailored specifically to my ring finger. But right now, it fit Chloe perfectly. I didn't call her out. I just nodded. "Sure." Ethan looked at me, seemingly surprised that I had agreed so easily. He frowned. "Hazel, don't look so miserable. Everyone came on this trip to celebrate with us. Don't ruin the mood over a silly game." I looked at him. "I'm not ruining the mood." Then smile. Tyler was already holding up his phone. "Come on, temporary bride and groom. Look at the camera." The others quickly crowded around Ethan and Chloe. The 5 of them stood in a perfect line. Tyler handed the phone to me. "Hazel, you take the best photos. Take a bunch for us." I took the phone. They stood incredibly close, with Ethan right in the center. Chloe wore my wedding dress, holding his arm. The other 3 surrounded them. It looked like a real wedding photo. "Hazel," Ethan called out, his voice laced with impatience. "What are you staring at?" I snapped out of it and pressed the shutter. 1, 2, more than a dozen photos. Not a single one had me in it. By the time we got back to the hotel, it was already 2 a.m. I had booked 3 double suites. The other 4 stayed in 2 suites, while Ethan and I were supposed to share one. But when we got the room keys, Liam suddenly announced with a grin, "The partner swap still has 12 hours left. According to the rules, Ethan has to stay with Chloe tonight." My hand froze on the keycard. "Staying in the same room is a rule too?" Chloe explained as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "It's just sharing a room, Hazel. The suite has 2 beds. It's not like anything is going to happen." Ethan's face darkened too. "With everyone watching, what are you so worried about?" I looked at him. "Then where do I sleep?" They exchanged looks. Tyler pointed down the hallway. "Ethan and Chloe's suite is a family suite. There's a pull-out couch in the living room. Can't you just sleep there?" So, they wanted me to sleep right outside the room of my fiancé and my best friend, listening to them close the door, waiting for their 24-hour game to end. Suddenly, the whole thing felt incredibly absurd. "I'll book another room." Liam immediately stopped me. "Don't do that. Rooms here are hundreds of dollars a night. Why waste that money? Besides, we all grew up together. We all know each other." I didn't actually grow up with them. The 5 of them had been best friends since high school. I only met Ethan in college and he brought me into their circle. For the first few years, I tried so hard to fit in. When they talked about the time they snuck out of school, I didn't get the jokes, but I laughed along anyway. They had inside nicknames only they understood, and I would secretly write them down in my notes app, so I wouldn't forget. I remembered everyone's birthdays, allergies, and habits. When they had dinners, I was always the first to arrive. When we traveled, I was the one booking the cars, the hotels, and making the itineraries. But no matter how much I did, whenever they brought up the past, they always said the same thing. You didn't know us back then, Hazel. You wouldn't understand. Eventually, you wouldn't understand turned into no need to tell her. They would change restaurant reservations last minute without letting me know. They all changed their group profile pictures, but no one sent it to me. Even for this trip, I only found out about it through Ethan and Chloe's Snapchat chat history. They had been planning it for 6 months. When I asked why no one told me, Ethan just laughed and patted my head. Weren't we just waiting for you to handle the logistics? So, the flights, the hotels, the itinerary, I handled all of it. I even paid for everything up front. In the end, the 5 of them came to enjoy the vacation, while I handled the labor. And now, even my own room had to be given up. I let go of the key card. You guys take it. I'll go down to the lobby. I didn't argue anymore. The next morning, when I woke up, the living room was empty. There was a photo in the Snapchat group of the 5 of them having breakfast. 5 plates were set on the table. Chloe sent a message. Hazel, we didn't want to wake you up, so we came down first. Grab some food when you wake up. After getting ready, I went down to the restaurant, only for the waiter to tell me that breakfast service had just ended. Right then, Ethan called. Where are you? The restaurant. Why are you still at the restaurant? His voice was impatient. We've been waiting at the dock for 20 minutes. I checked the Snapchat group. No one had told me what time we were leaving. You guys didn't call me. Didn't Chloe message you? She only said you guys went down to eat first. Ethan fell silent for a second, then snapped. Any normal person would ask where everyone went when they saw the room was empty. Everyone is waiting for you. I ended up skipping breakfast. By the time I reached the dock, the yacht was already starting up. The 5 of them were standing on the deck. No one had saved a spot for me. Chloe was wearing Ethan's white button-down shirt. The hem of the shirt barely covered her thighs. When she saw me, she quickly pulled the collar tight. Hazel, don't get the wrong idea. The zipper on my dress broke, so Ethan lent me his shirt. Ethan's shirts were something I was never allowed to touch. Once, when doing laundry, I accidentally washed one of his white shirts with a dark shirt, staining it slightly gray. He didn't speak to me for an entire week. He told me he hated people touching his personal clothes. But now, Chloe was wearing it, and he barely glanced at her, only saying softly, "Put on some pants later, so you don't catch a cold." Chloe stuck her tongue out at me. See? He's such a control freak. I grabbed the railing to climb onto the boat. Liam shoved a pile of gear into my arms. Perfect. Hold the sunscreen, the camera, and the water for us, will you? I held their things and sat in the seat closest to the loud engine. The sea breeze hit me, and because I hadn't eaten, my stomach started to ache. For today's diving activity, I had spent 6 months taking swimming lessons. Ethan loved the ocean, but I was terrified of water. Still, I had secretly signed up for diving classes just to surprise him on this trip. But once we reached the diving spot, the instructor said only 5 people could go down at a time. Tyler laughed and looked at me. Hazel is scared of water anyway. Just stay on the boat and watch our bags. I opened my mouth, wanting to tell them I had already gotten my diving certification. But Chloe suddenly grabbed Ethan's arm. Ethan, I'm a little nervous. You have to hold my hand when we go down. Ethan checked her oxygen tank. Don't worry, I'll be right next to you. I swallowed my words. The 5 of them jumped into the ocean, leaving me alone on the deck, watching over their clothes and phones. After a while, the instructor asked me, "Don't you want to go down?" I pulled the brand new diving certificate out of my bag. I stared at it for a long time, then shook my head. No, I'm good. At lunch, Chloe got seasick, and Ethan stayed by her side the entire time. My stomach hurt so badly, I couldn't eat. I wanted to ask the waiter to exchange my meal for some plain oatmeal. But Liam laughed and said, Hazel, why are you suddenly feeling sick too? Are you copying Chloe's seasickness on purpose? The others laughed. Ethan looked up at me. You're usually fine on boats. I explained, I didn't eat breakfast, so my stomach is hurting. But he just looked down, handing a glass of warm water to Chloe. Then just bear with it. Don't cause trouble while she's actually miserable. The waiter soon brought a bowl of oatmeal. Just as I reached for it, Ethan slid the bowl over to Chloe. Eat some of this first. My hand froze in midair. That was the oatmeal I had ordered. But no one in the group thought anything was wrong with what he did. Chloe took 2 bites and complained it was tasteless. I don't want it anymore. She pushed the messy bowl back to me. Hazel, didn't you say your stomach hurts? Here, you can have it. The oatmeal was already a mess, and her lipstick was smudged on the spoon. In the past, I probably would have eaten it anyway, because Chloe would always tell me, "We're best friends, what's mine is yours." And Ethan would praise me. Hazel is always so understanding, not high maintenance like other girls. But this time, I called the waiter over. "Could you throw this away, please?" Chloe's smile froze. I barely touched it. "Do you find me gross?" I said calmly. "I don't eat other people's leftovers." Ethan's face instantly darkened. "Hazel, she's feeling terrible and she still thought of saving food for you. Do you really have to embarrass her right now?" I looked at the 5 people in front of me, suddenly feeling a sense of detachment. Over the years, they always left their leftovers for me. When a table was too full, they made me sit elsewhere. When there wasn't enough room in the car, they made me take an Uber. When they needed a photographer, they remembered me. But the moment I said no just once, I became the one who didn't fit in, who was petty, who couldn't take a joke. I lowered my eyes. "I'm sorry." Everyone's expression softened. Tyler laughed. "That's more like it. We're on vacation. Let's just have fun." I smiled too. But this apology wasn't because I thought I was wrong. It was because I was done trying to explain myself to them. That night, they went to drink on the balcony again. I stayed in the room alone, packing my bags. This trip was supposed to last 7 days, and only 3 had passed. But I didn't want to play their game anymore. I booked the earliest flight back for the next morning. After finishing, I realized my charger was missing. Remembering Chloe had borrowed it earlier, I went to her room to grab it. The door was unlocked, and the room was empty. But the tablet on her nightstand was glowing. A new message notification popped up. The group chat name was The Core 5. Tyler had sent a video. It was the clip of Ethan and Chloe kissing from yesterday. Below, it was a flood of teasing emojis. "Finally kissed. Told you this game would work." Hazel's face went totally pale, but she still took it. Impressive. She really knows how to fake it. I stood by the bed, my fingers turning cold. It was a group chat without me. I scrolled up through the chat history. The oldest message went back 3 months. Chloe had shared a screenshot of a partner swap game. "Hazel always says she fits right in with us, right? Let's see how many rounds she can last before she loses it." Liam replied quickly. "Make sure all her cards are blank." Tyler added, "And make sure Ethan and Chloe's cards match up perfectly. From holding hands to hugging and kissing. This is going to be wild." I kept scrolling up. Ethan hadn't replied at first, but much later, he sent a text. "Don't take it too far." I stared at those words, a pathetic spark of hope rising in my chest. At least he had tried to stop them once. But in the next message, Ethan wrote, "Hazel takes things too seriously. We still need her to organize the wedding. Don't actually drive her away." Tyler sent a laughing emoji. "Don't worry, she'll never leave you." Ethan replied, "True." Those few words felt like a slap to my face. It turned out he knew all along that the game was rigged. He knew from the very start that my cards were blank. He knew everyone was waiting to watch me make a fool of myself. And he knew I would swallow my pride and endure it over and over again. But he was only worried they would play too hard and ruin the wedding preparations I was handling for him. I kept scrolling. Further up was the planning of this trip. I had sent them the detailed itinerary I spent weeks making. No one had replied in our main group, but this private group of 5 was extremely active. The diving spot Hazel picked looks so boring. Chloe is scared of water. Let's do a yacht party instead. Ethan wrote, "No need to tell her. We'll just change it when we get there. She won't say no." They even discussed the room arrangements. Let Ethan and Chloe take the family suite. What about Hazel? The couch. What if she refuses? Ethan replied, "I'll say a few words. She'll agree." Standing in Chloe's room, I suddenly found it hard to breathe. All these years, I thought I was just a slow-to-warm person, which was why I couldn't fully integrate into their group. So I tried my best to be good to them. I memorized their preferences, tolerated their jokes, and took care of all the tedious tasks. Only now did I realize it was never about me not fitting in. They were just standing inside a locked room, holding hands, watching me struggle outside, laughing at my futile attempts to get in. A new message popped up in the group. Liam asked, "Where is Hazel?" Tyler replied, "Probably crying in her room." "Should we start the next round?" Chloe quickly sent a voice note. "Let's stop. Hazel seems actually mad." Ethan replied, If she's mad, let her cool off on her own. Does everyone have to baby her every single time? It's exhausting. Listening to his voice, the last bit of warmth in my chest vanished. Just as I was about to turn off the tablet, a new video popped up. It was a video sneaked by Tyler. On the balcony, only Ethan and Chloe were left. Chloe was drunk, leaning on his shoulder, asking, "Ethan, if I hadn't rejected you back then, would you still be with Hazel?" My finger hovered over the screen. The wind on the video was loud, and Ethan remained silent for a long time. Finally, he said softly,
"No."
Chloe smiled, but tears fell down her face. "Do you regret it now?" Ethan didn't answer, but he reached out and gently wiped her tears away. That tender gesture was more than enough of an answer. The video ended there. The group chat was silent for a few seconds before Tyler texted, "I'm telling you guys, you two are the real soulmates." Liam chimed in, "Hazel was always the interloper anyway. She's taken Chloe's spot for so many years. It's time to give it back." My ears buzzed. It turned out that in their eyes, the girl who had loved Ethan for 7 years and was about to marry him was just an interloper. I turned off the tablet and put the charger back. I didn't confront them, nor did I storm onto the balcony, because the answer was already crystal clear. I went back to my room and changed my flight to the final red-eye of the night. I had 2 hours left, more than enough time to leave. Since there was never room for me in a 6-person trip, then for the rest of my life, I didn't need to save a seat for them either. The quiet of the resort at 2:30 a.m. was deafening. Outside, the tide slapped against the concrete pillars of the dock, rhythmic and indifferent. Inside the room, I worked silently. Every zipper was pulled with deliberate slowness. Every pair of shoes was packed without making a sound. 7 years of my life with Ethan, and 3 years of trying to earn a seat at a table that was never meant for me fit into 2 standard rolling suitcases. Before I shut the final bag, I walked over to the desk. I took out the deck box from the 24-hour partner swap game. I pulled out the neat stack of blank cards, the ones meant to keep me in my place as their unpaid servant for the entire trip. I laid them out side by side across the pristine white duvet of the bed. Right in the center of those blank cards, I placed the engagement ring. It sparkled under the warm bedside lamp. A custom piece Ethan had claimed, tailored specifically to your finger, he had whispered when he proposed on a sunlit balcony in Florence last year. Yet tonight, it had slid onto Chloe's finger without the slightest resistance. It hadn't been custom-made for me at all. It was just a standard size, Chloe's size. Beside the ring, I left a single sheet of paper, the itemized invoice for the resort, the private yacht rental, and the luxury dining packages for all 6 of us. Every single charge was attached to my personal corporate credit card, the one linked directly to my family's estate trust. I pulled up my banking app on my phone, tapped Manage Cards, and revoked all secondary authorizations for Ethan, Tyler, and Liam. Then I called the front desk. "Good evening, Miss Hazel," the night manager said smoothly. "I am checking out early," I said, my voice steady, devoid of any shake. "Furthermore, I am canceling the master billing authorization for Suite 401 for O2 and the family suite. Effective immediately, my card is no longer covering any incidental charges, room fees, or food services for the remaining 4 days of the booking." The manager paused, catching the shift in tone. "Understood, ma'am." "That leaves a balance for the remaining days. Should we transfer the room charges to the secondary guest on file, Mr. Ethan Vance?" "Yes," I said softly. "Transfer everything to him." I picked up my bags, took one last look at the room, and stepped out into the night. When the taxi arrived to take me to the island's small international airport, I didn't look back at the resort towering against the dark shoreline. I sat in the back seat, pulled up my phone, and opened my contacts. I didn't block Ethan or Chloe right away. Blocking them would look like a reaction born of hurt. It would give them the satisfaction of knowing they had broken me. Instead, I transferred ownership of the main wedding planning folder to Ethan's personal email, wiped my own access, and systematically unlinked my name from every joint reservation we had ever made: the venue, the private catering firm, the high-end floral stylist, and the photographer. By the time the red-eye flight lifted off into the clouds, the life I had built around Ethan Vance was entirely dismantled. At 9:30 a.m., the tropical sun burned brightly over the island resort. Ethan woke up late, his head throbbing slightly from the wine he had shared with Chloe on the balcony. He stretched, expecting to smell the dark roast coffee Hazel always brewed for him whenever they traveled. The suite was silent. "Hazel," he called out, his voice raspy from sleep. No answer. He frowned, throwing back the covers. Chloe was still asleep on the large, king-size bed in the adjacent room, wrapped in his white button-down shirt. Ethan walked into the living area, expecting to see Hazel sitting on the pull-out couch, perhaps looking quiet and distant as she usually did when she was feeling petty. The couch was neatly made. Her luggage was gone. Ethan chuckled under his breath, rolling his eyes. She actually took her stuff and went down to the lobby early, he thought. She really is throwing a fit this time. He walked over to the nightstand to grab his phone and froze. Spread out across the white bedspread was a hand of pure white, blank cards. Resting on the center card was the engagement ring. Beside it lay a neatly folded piece of hotel stationery. Ethan picked up the ring. The silver felt ice-cold in his palm. He unfolded the paper, expecting a dramatic letter full of tears, accusations, and heartbreak. Instead, it was a bank receipt and a printout of the master booking statement. Across the top, written in clear, precise calligraphy, was a short message. The remaining 4 days of the suites, the yacht, and the dining reservations are now billed to your card. My gift to the core 5. Enjoy the rest of your game. Ethan's heart gave a sudden, uncomfortable thud. He quickly grabbed his phone and dialed Hazel's number. "The number you have dialed is currently unavailable." He tried calling her on Snapchat, WhatsApp, and iMessage. Every single attempt was met with a gray, undelivered mark. She hadn't blocked his number entirely. She had simply removed him from her life, cutting the digital thread completely. Before he could process the rising surge of irritation in his chest, a loud knock rattled the door of the suite. Ethan opened it to find Tyler and Liam standing outside, looking furious. "Ethan, what the hell is going on?" Tyler snapped, holding up his phone. "I just tried to order room service and the front desk said my room key was deactivated. They told me our credit card on file was declined." Liam pushed his way into the room, holding a printed bill. "The hotel manager just came to our suite. He said Hazel checked out at 3 in the morning and canceled her MasterCard. Ethan, they're asking for $12,000 in cash or credit right now to cover the rest of the week." Ethan's jaw tightened. "She's just being dramatic. She's mad about the card game." "Then call her," Tyler yelled. "Make her fix it. I don't have $3,000 lying around to cover my share of this place." We agreed. She was handling the trip expenses. "She's not answering," Ethan muttered, his face darkening. At that moment, Chloe walked out of the bedroom, rubbing her eyes, still wearing Ethan's oversized shirt. Her hair was messy, and she looked small and fragile. "What's all the noise about?" she asked softly. "Is Hazel back with breakfast?" Tyler turned on her, his face flushed with anger. "No, Chloe. Hazel left. She canceled the cards, she threw away her ring, and now the hotel is threatening to call the local authorities if we don't settle a $12,000 bill in 20 minutes. Chloe shrank back, clutching the collar of Ethan's shirt. "What? Why would she do that?" "It was just a game. She knew we were just messing around." Ethan looked at Chloe, then down at the blank cards scattered across the bed. For the first time in 7 years, a cold thread of genuine panic began to twist in the pit of his stomach. By the time I landed back in my hometown, the sun was setting over the city skyline. I didn't head to the luxury condo Ethan and I shared. Instead, I called a moving crew that my family's real estate firm used for corporate transitions. I had bought that condo 2 years ago under my personal LLC. Ethan had lived there rent-free, claiming he was reinvesting all his profits back into his tech startup. I had decorated it, bought the furniture, and stocked the kitchen. Within 4 hours, the moving team had packed up everything that belonged to me, my books, my designer art pieces, my clothes, and even the high-end coffee espresso machine I had imported from Italy. I left behind only the things Ethan had bought himself: 3 suits, a gaming console, and a box of old high school memorabilia from his days with the core 5. I changed the smart lock codes on the front door, revoked his access keycards with the building's concierge, and drove straight to my personal estate on the outskirts of the city, a quiet, gated property my late grandfather had left to me. That night, my phone finally buzzed with a wave of notifications as Ethan and his friends landed back in the city, having cut their vacation short after being forced to split the hotel bill on their personal credit cards. A barrage of text messages flooded in from Tyler and Liam. "Tyler, Hazel, you went way too far. Leaving us stranded on an island over a stupid card game? That's totally psychotic." Liam, We thought you were better than this. Chloe was crying the entire flight home because of you. I didn't reply. I simply took screenshots of their messages, forwarded them to my legal counsel, and blocked their numbers permanently. Then came the messages from Ethan. Ethan, Hazel, open the condo door. My keycard isn't working. Where is all the furniture? What is going on with you? Ethan, I know you're hurt about the game, okay? I admit maybe Chloe and the guys took the joke a little too far. But you leaving the trip and locking me out of our home is completely out of line. Ethan, call me right now. We need to talk like adults. I looked at the screen, feeling a strange, hollow sense of clarity. For 7 years, Ethan had trained me to believe that any reaction I had to his disrespect was an emotional overreaction. He had made me feel small, demanding, and overly sensitive whenever I voiced discomfort about his overstepping boundary with Chloe. I opened the chat, typed my first and last message to him, and sent it. Hazel, the condo belongs to my LLC. Your personal belongings have been packed into 3 boxes and left at the concierge desk downstairs. You have 24 hours to retrieve them before the building security disposes of them. Do not contact me again. My lawyer will handle the cancellation of our joint accounts tomorrow. A second later, his name flashed on the screen as he tried to call me. I hit decline, wiped his contact profile, and deleted 7 years of photos from my cloud storage. Without my quiet presence holding up the background of Ethan's life, the dominoes began to fall much faster than anyone anticipated. 3 days after I returned, I attended a quarterly board meeting at my family's firm, Vance and Sterling Holdings. Despite sharing a last name with Ethan's family, our firm was a legacy real estate giant. Ethan's father was merely a distant branch cousin who had tried for years to ride our coattails. My father, Arthur Sterling, sat at the head of the conference table. Hazel, he said, setting down a cup of tea. Ethan's father called my office this morning. He was frantic. He said Ethan's tech firm just lost its primary venture capital backing. I raised an eyebrow, adjusting the sleeve of my silk blazer. Oh, yes, my father said calmly. Apparently, the lead investor, Mr. Harrison, only agreed to meet with Ethan in the first place because he thought Ethan was marrying into our primary family branch. When Harrison learned through the wedding registry cancellations that the engagement was off, he pulled the seed funding. I smiled faintly, taking a sip of my coffee. Ethan always told his investors that his success was entirely self-made. I suppose he gets to prove it now. There's more, my father added, a sharp glint in his eyes. The catering firm, the floral designer, and the venue for the wedding, they all called to process the refunds for your deposits. Since you paid those upfront, $200,000 was credited back to your account today. However, Ethan's team had already incurred non-refundable charges for custom suits and private transport. The vendors are pursuing him for the balance. While Ethan was drowning in financial reality, his personal life was faring no better. In the small, cramped 2-bedroom apartment that Tyler and Liam shared, Ethan was forced to sleep on a second-hand couch. He had no access to the luxury condo, no access to my family's network, and his credit cards were maxed out. From paying off the island resort bill, Chloe spent every evening at the apartment trying to support him. Ethan, don't worry about her, Chloe said sweetly one evening, placing a cold compress on his forehead as he sat staring at his laptop's declining bank balance. She was just using her money to control you anyway. Now you're finally free. Ethan looked at her, his eyes bloodshot and dark. For the past 3 days, Chloe hadn't cooked a single meal, hadn't washed a single dish, and spent most of her time complaining about the noise in Tyler's apartment building. When Ethan had asked her if she could lend him a few $1,000 to cover his payroll for his startup this month, she had suddenly looked evasive. Ethan, you know my money is tied up in my boutique savings, she had stammered. Besides, isn't that something a man is supposed to figure out? Sitting on that worn-out couch, surrounded by pizza boxes and Tyler's unwashed laundry, Ethan stared at Chloe's face. Without the backdrop of my quiet elegance, without the luxury dinners I paid for, and without the subtle thrill of taking something away from me, Chloe suddenly looked ordinary, demanding, and utterly shallow. Chloe, Ethan said, his voice flat. Can you please just leave me alone for a few hours? Chloe blinked, shocked. What? Ethan, I'm trying to be here for you. I stayed with you even when Hazel abandoned you. Hazel didn't abandon me, Ethan snapped, his temper finally snapping. We pushed her out. We played that stupid game. We mocked her. We took her money for granted, and now my entire life is falling apart. Chloe's face turned pale, then flushed with angry red. So, you're blaming me. Now? You're the one who kissed me at the mock wedding. You're the one who wiped my tears on the balcony. You said you wished you were with me. Because I was an idiot. Ethan roared, standing up and slamming his laptop. Shut. I thought you actually cared about me. But you just liked the drama. You liked seeing her stand in the corner while you wore her dress. Tyler walked into the room, holding a beer can, frowning. Hey man, don't yell at Chloe. She's been trying her best. Ethan looked at Tyler, then at Liam, who was sitting on the floor playing video games. These were the core five. The tight-knit group of friends he had prioritized over Hazel for years. The people whose laughter he had cherished, whose inside jokes he had guarded like gold. Looking at them now, Ethan realized something terrifying. None of them had real jobs. None of them had ambition. They were parasites who had fed off Hazel's generosity, using Ethan as the straw to drink her dry. And now that the well was empty, the parasites were starting to bite each other. 2 months passed. The autumn social season opened with the annual Sterling Foundation Architectural Gala, the most prestigious event of the year for the city's elite. As the newly appointed Vice President of Creative Development for Sterling Holdings, I was responsible for hosting the evening. I wore a backless, tailored emerald green velvet gown, my hair swept up in an elegant vintage undo, framed by modest diamond drop earrings. I stood near the grand marble staircase of the City Art Museum, holding a glass of champagne, surrounded by city council members, top developers, and international architects. Beside me stood Julian Vance, no relation to Ethan's small branch, but rather the senior partner of an international European investment fund. Tall, composed, and effortlessly sharp, Julian had been working closely with me on our latest urban restoration project for the past month. You look entirely in your element, Hazel, Julian murmured softly, handing me a small napkin as the waiter passed by. Much better than the stress version of you I met 6 weeks ago. I laughed softly. I had a lot of unnecessary weight to shed back then. Before Julian could reply, a sudden commotion echoed from the entrance of the main ballroom. I turned my head slightly and saw security guards stepping forward to block a man who was frantically trying to push his way past the check-in desk. It was Ethan. He looked unrecognizably ragged. His suit was wrinkled, his hair unstyled, and his eyes were hollowed out with deep black circles. Standing right behind him, looking equally frantic and uncomfortably out of place in a flashy, fast-fashion dress, was Chloe. I'm on the guest list. Ethan was yelling at the security guard. My family is associated with Sterling Holdings. I need to see Hazel Sterling. The security guard held up a hand firmly. Sir, Mr. Vance's name was removed from the primary invitation list by order of the executive committee 2 weeks ago. Please step aside or we will call law enforcement. Hazel, Ethan yelled, his voice cutting through the soft violin music echoing through the hall. He caught sight of me standing by the marble staircase. Hazel, please. Just give me 5 minutes. The entire ballroom fell quiet. Heads turned. Whispers began to ripple through the crowd of high society guests. Chloe tried to pull Ethan's arm, her face red with embarrassment. Ethan, stop. Everyone is looking at us. Let's just go. Shut up, Chloe. Ethan shoved her hand off his arm, glaring at her with pure resentment. This is all because of you and your stupid games. I stood at the top of the stairs, looking down at them. There was no anger left in my chest. No heartbreak. No urge to scream or cry. Looking at Ethan Vance now was like looking at a stranger I had accidentally shared an elevator with years ago. Julian looked down at me, his expression calm. Do you want me to have security clear them out, Hazel? No, I said softly, setting my champagne glass down on a passing waiter's tray. I'll handle it myself. I glided down the grand marble staircase, the heavy velvet of my dress rustling softly against the floor. Every eye in the room followed me. I stopped 3 steps above the ground level, looking down at Ethan and Chloe, who were separated from me by 2 tall security guards. Hazel, Ethan gasped, taking a step forward, his eyes filling with desperate tears. Hazel, please. My company is bankrupt. My father won't speak to me. Tyler and Liam evicted me from their apartment yesterday. I have nothing left. He reached out a shaking hand, trying to touch the hem of my dress. I was stupid, he sobbed, completely unbothered by the dozens of high-profile guests watching his public humiliation. I thought I wanted the past. I thought I wanted Chloe, but it was all fake. She didn't love me. She just wanted what you had. You were the only one who ever truly cared about me, Hazel. Please, come home. We can rebuild everything. I'll give you the wedding you wanted. Chloe stood behind him, trembling, tears of shame streaming down her heavy makeup. Hazel, tell him to stop. He's crazy. I never meant to hurt you. I looked at Ethan for a long moment. Then I looked at Chloe. I pulled my phone from my small clutch bag, tapped the screen a few times, and turned it around, showing the clear, high-definition video playing on the screen. It was the video Tyler had recorded on the balcony during the island trip. Ethan's voice rang out crisp and clear from my phone's speaker, echoing in the silent hall. If I hadn't rejected you back then, would you still be with Hazel?
No.
Ethan's face went entirely paper white. The breath hitched in his throat. I turned the phone off and slipped it back into my bag. You told me once that I was a sore loser, Ethan. I said, my voice calm, smooth, and echoing clearly through the grand foyer. But you were wrong.
I
Didn't lose anything. I stepped down the final stair, walking past them as if they were made of glass. You lost the only person who would have stood by you when you had nothing. I said, pausing right beside him, without even turning my head. And as for your seat at my table, it was revoked the moment I walked out of that resort. I looked over at the head of security. Show them out, please. Right away, Miss Sterling, the guards replied, stepping forward and firmly, grasping Ethan and Chloe by their arms, dragging them out into the cold night air as they wept and argued with each other. I turned back to the room, where the violin music softly resumed. Julian stepped down the stairs, offering me his arm with a warm, genuine smile. Shall we return to our guests, Vice President? I placed my hand gently over his arm, feeling the solid, quiet strength of a life where I was finally seen, valued, and respected. Yes, I said, smiling brightly as I walked toward the center of the hall. Let's go. For the rest of my life, I had a seat reserved at every table that mattered.
and
The people who had tried to keep me in the dark were finally left outside in the cold, where they belonged.